On July 5, 1943, 1,900 German aircraft struck Soviet positions at Kursk, while Red Army fighters armed with 20mm SHVAK cannons required multiple passes to destroy single Heinkel 111 bombers, exposing a catastrophic gap in single-shot lethality that threatened Soviet air superiority over the Eastern Front. Standard Yak-9 fighters achieved only 15 to 20mm armor penetration at 500 meters, marginally effective against Stug-3 assault guns with 30mm sloped armor, creating equivalent protection up to 80mm. Within 72 hours of intense aerial combat, Wehrmacht after-action reports documented that Soviet aircraft required massed formations of 12 to 18 fighters per target to ensure bomber destruction, forcing VVS pilots into concentrated attacks that exposed them to German escorts, claiming substantial losses during the opening phase of the battle. The crisis deepened as German light armor maneuvered freely under Luftwaffe protection. Panzer III and Stug-3 vehicles, totaling 200 in 38 Panzer Corps alone, operated under doctrines assuming protection from Il-2 Sturmovik attacks via dispersed formations and 20mm flak-feeling guns. Wehrmacht after-action reports from the 6th Panzer Division quantified Il-2 vulnerability, noting that 30mm side armor on Stug-3 required multiple direct 23mm VYA hits from Sturmoviks to achieve disablement, allowing German commanders to maintain tactical mobility during Soviet counterattacks. This arithmetic forced the VVS into massed formations of 12 to 18 aircraft per target, exposing pilots to FW-190 and Bf-109 escorts that claimed substantial Soviet fighters in the opening 72 hours. Soviet aviation leadership recognized the operational requirement that existing fighter armament failed to ensure destruction of He-111 and Ju-88 bombers in single-firing passes from 300 to 500 meters. Development priorities mandated heavy cannon armament exceeding 35mm penetration at 500 meters against light armor, with immediate conversion of Yak-9 production to cannon variants required to close the gap against 8 Fliegerkorps bomber support. Chief designer Alexander Sergeyevich Yakovlev received development authorization for Yak-9 cannon variants through standard NKAP channels, mandating OKB-115 to adapt the Yak-9 airframe for NS-37 cannon integration. The chief designer at Factory No. 115 in Moscow's Kadynka Field District faced constraints that would define his solution: production deadline summer 1943 for initial units, weight limit 3,025 kilograms maximum takeoff, and manufacturing time not exceeding 1850 man-hours versus 1600 for standard Yak-9 variants. Aaron Alexandrovich Nudelman, age 29, and chief designer at OKB-16 in Moscow, had proposed NS-37 aircraft cannon integration during early 1943 in technical proposals. Co-designer Vladimir Saranov finalized the short recoil gas-assisted mechanism with 45mm barrel recoil and 20% gas piston assist, addressing the fundamental ballistic inadequacy of existing armament. The 37 by 167mm rimmed cartridge with 745-gram projectile at 800 meters per second muzzle velocity offered 51mm penetration at 100 meters, precisely meeting operational requirements. The design constraints emphasized production simplicity via 1,247 components versus 1,800 for comparable systems, using stamped steel receiver and chrome molybdenum barrel with 1 in 25 rifling twist. Yakovlev's team relocated the cockpit 0.4 of a meter rearward from frame 10 to 12, reinforced the firewall with 20mm steel plate, and stiffened longerons with duralumin spars, accepting a total airframe weight increase of 185 kilograms to absorb 12,000 kilogram recoil impulse per shot. If you're fascinated by how engineering constraints shaped the weapons that decided history's greatest conflicts, subscribe now for more deep dives into the machinery that changed warfare forever. The completed Yak-9T emerged as a flying tank killer, with specifications that redefined Soviet fighter doctrine. Empty weight reached 2,660 kilograms, increased from the standard Yak-9's 2,360 kilograms due to NS-37 installation and structural reinforcement. Overall length measured 8.5 meters, maintaining standard dimensions to accommodate the cannon barrel protrusion through the propeller hub. The single pilot crew operated a 30-round electrically fed drum magazine, feeding 37 by 167 mm R cartridges through electric trigger linkage synchronized to the RP-23 propeller system. The NS-37 cannon achieved 800 meters per second muzzle velocity with the 745-gram armor-piercing tracer projectile, delivering penetration performance of 51 mm at 100 meters, 45 mm at 300 meters, and 38 mm at 500 meters against rolled homogeneous armor. Alternative ammunition included 10 20-gram high-explosive incendiary rounds at 760 meters per second, with 65 grams AIX-5 explosive filler, and concrete piercing variants weighing 800 grams, with 55 mm penetration at 300 meters. The integration imposed a speed penalty of 20 to 40 kilometers per hour, reducing maximum velocity to 570 to 600 kilometers per hour at 3,000 meters versus 600 for standard Yak-9 variants. But this compromise was justified by 80% single-shot bomber kill probability demonstrated in NII VVS trials. Practical rate of fire reached 50 rounds per minute in sustained bursts, limited by magazine capacity, requiring 4 to 6 minute reload periods in flight, and recoil-induced airframe vibration, reaching 0.4 g peak acceleration. Fighter aviation regiments transitioned to Yak-9 variants during 1944 under 2nd Air Army operations, transforming from Yak-1B units pending performance evaluation. Initial allocation included Yak-9Ts shipped from factory number 31 via rail, with deliveries arriving through early 1943. Regiment complement was achieved with additional deliveries from factory number 153 Novosibirsk, creating specialized heavy cannon fighter capabilities. Regiment structure comprised 3 squadrons under experienced commanders, with aircraft distributed across operational requirements, totaling pilots trained on NS-37 procedures by operational deployment. Combat sorties launched over the Kursk salient, with Yak-9Ts serviceable, establishing tactical doctrine that emphasized single-pass attacks at 300 to 500 meter range due to 30-round magazine limitations and 5-second full burst duration. Soviet pilots achieved combat success with the type during summer 1943 operations, engaging German bomber formations with improved effectiveness. Combat engagements demonstrated NS-37 effectiveness against structural redundancy that had protected German bombers from 20mm fire, achieving confirmed kills with reduced ammunition expenditure while barrel temperature reached operational limits post-engagement. Where are you watching from today? And do you remember hearing stories about these massive air battles from family members who lived through the war? Drop a comment below and share what you recall about this era. Anti-shipping effectiveness emerged during the Crimean Offensive, when Yak-9Ts struck German evacuation convoys in April 1944. Soviet pilots attacked Seeble ferries and KM-type barges loaded with troops from German divisions 5 kilometers off Cape Chersonese. War diary entries recorded 37mm penetrations into Seeble ferry hull amidships at 300 meters, causing magazine detonation that sank vessels with significant personnel casualties. Additional rounds struck barge deck concentrations, spreading fire to ammunition stores and drowning troops, while other aircraft damaged additional ferries, with one beached. Total engagement results included 2 vessels sunk, 2 mission killed, and substantial enemy casualties, contributing to German losses during evacuation attempts. Regiment commanders noted that NS-37 effectiveness turned Black Sea barges to splinters in single bursts, making evacuation impossible under such concentrated fire. German fighter units issued tactical warnings during summer 1943, identifying the Yak-9T as a new threat variant in operational reports. Orders identified Soviet Yak-9 variants with elongated nose cannon protrusions, caliber estimated 35 to 40 mm based on muzzle flash and shell impact signatures, had caused catastrophic damage distinct from standard VYA-23 23 mm weapons through single large caliber burst patterns. The directives referenced engagements where German units lost bombers to heavy single-shell hits during escort intercepts near Belgorod, with pilots killed by NS-37 fire. Luftflotte 4's intelligence summaries aggregated reports confirming Yak-9T sightings after deployment, with German aircraft damaged by 37 mm fire, including bombers written off after structural damage at operational altitudes. Luftflotte 4 responded with general armour upgrades during 1943, mandating Bf 109 G6 armour improvements, including armoured glass cockpit panels and steel plates behind pilot seats. Production directives for armour kits by December required additional armoured steel for aircraft protection, with Erler Maschinenwerk GmbH Augsburg supplying components that increased empty weight by 85 kilograms per aircraft. Tactical countermeasures specified avoidance of engagements below 4,000 meters, where Yak-9T cannon remained effective, to 800 meters slant range, forcing German formations to climb to 5,500 meters, where Soviet engine power degraded. Implementation, tracking in Luftflotte 4's monthly reports, showed numerous Bf 109 G6s upgraded by November 15th, reducing Yak-9T effectiveness through armor protection and altitude discipline. Soviet factories achieved limited monthly output during production runs, averaging specialized airframes during the manufacturing period that followed tooling development. Total production reached approximately 430 units by war's end, with primary factories contributing the complete production run, representing a specialized variant in the Yak-9 family. Per-unit manufacturing cost increased substantially in 1944, representing a significant increase over standard Yak-9 variants due to NS-37 integration costs, reinforced nose spar requirements, and 30-round ammunition drum additions. Labor requirements increased substantially per aircraft versus baseline Yak-9 production, with factories averaging specialized production costs through limited manufacturing runs. Cost comparison revealed Yak-9T equivalents to multiple T-34 tanks at varying wartime prices, or comparable La-5FN fighters at standard costs, highlighting the economic commitment to heavy cannon armament. German countermeasures imposed asymmetric costs, with armor retrofit kits requiring substantial steel and workshop hours per tank versus low cost for NS-37 ammunition, forcing Wehrmacht industry to retrofit entire armored fleets against weapons manufactured for the price of binoculars. The Yak-9T served Soviet VVS units until 1946, when remaining units decommissioned their final airframes during post-war reorganization. Approximately limited aircraft remained in inventory by May 1945, reduced through attrition and conversion to training roles, before final phase-out orders mandated complete decommissioning by June 30th. Export allocations included aircraft to Poland, delivered during post-war transfers to equip fighter units until retirement. Yugoslavia received Yak-9Ts for airbases near Belgrade, operating with fighter squadrons until replacement by later variants. Post-war conflicts saw limited employment of remaining Soviet aircraft in regional operations, with documented engagements where aircraft destroyed armored vehicles using NS-37 armor-piercing rounds, achieving penetration through armor plating at operational ranges. Later conflicts involved remaining aircraft in ground attack roles, including strikes on artillery positions, disabling equipment with NS-37 rounds, achieving penetration through protective shields. The NS-37 cartridge found adaptation in various post-war systems, including heavy machine gun applications, with the 37mm concept influencing later anti-aircraft developments. The systematic destruction of anti-tank networks that enabled Barbarossa's opening hemorrhage had forced creation of a weapon so fundamental it required no improvement, only replication, across conflicts spanning from Stalin's Air Force to specialized applications. The weapon succeeded not through technical sophistication, but relentless adequacy, simple enough to manufacture under siege conditions, effective enough to justify frontline distribution, durable enough to outlast the regime that commissioned it. Decades after wartime development, the NS-37 concept continues influencing modern weapons design, validating the crisis-driven engineering that transformed a desperate summer afternoon at Kursk into enduring battlefield effectiveness. Subscribe for more deep dives into the weapons that shaped history's greatest conflicts, and thanks for watching.